Today we'll make a simple tunnel animation, in which the camera will move along a path inside a tunnel. I'm going to use the 2.82 version of Blender. We're going to cover the following techniques and topics: Bezier Circle curve, follow path constraint, convert curve to mesh, Displace modifier, Voronoi texture, bump node, noise texture. First, let's delete the default cube, X to delete, and let's save this file right away, Control S, where we want it to be saved, like for example here, the name, let's say tunnel animation, and ready to go. Add a circle curve. So Shift A. Now make sure to add a curve, not a mesh. So curve, circle. Scale the curve. S5. Enter. Now select the camera and reset its location by hitting Alt-G. Then in the Object Constraint tab, here, add a follow path constraint and select the Bezier circle we just added as the target. Target, the circle. Okay. If you now increase the offset by dragging your mouse cursor over the offset box, you will see that the camera indeed follows the path, but it faces the wrong direction most of the time. So set offset back to 0 and check the follow curve box over here, follow curve. Now you can hit R twice and rotate the camera so that it points in the direction you want. So RR, now you can just rotate the camera as wanted. Okay, this looks good. If you now change the offset, you will see that this time the camera always faces the right direction. Okay. Now select the circle curve and go to Edit mode. Select one of the 4 vertices, for example this one here, and move it slightly down by hitting G and Z. Like that. This will add some variation to the shape of the tunnel. Repeat the same step for the opposite vertex over here. Select G, Z and drag down. Okay. And then select one of the other vertices, for example this one here, and move it slightly up. So G, Z and drag up. And the 4th point may stay untouched. Now go to Object mode. This is our path. Select the camera and play with the offset again, just to make sure everything is still working fine. Okay. If necessary, you can adjust the camera by hitting R twice again and rotating it as needed. Let's see. Maybe slightly down. RR. RR. Okay. Maybe this is better. Good. Now set the offset back to 0. Then select the circle curve and rename it Path in the outliner. In order to do it, just double-click on its name and type the new name. Path. Enter. We're doing this because in the next step we will duplicate the curve to turn it into the tunnel itself. So the tunnel and the path will have the same shape. Now, with the path still selected, duplicate it by hitting Shift+D. Then immediately press Escape so that the duplicate stays in place. Rename the duplicate Tunnel in the outliner. Fine. Now the tunnel is just a curve without any geometry. We have to give it some geometry, so with Tunnel selected, go to the Object Data tab and under Geometry, set depth to 0.26. Now the camera is hidden inside the tunnel. We're going to convert the curve to mesh. You can do it in the Object menu by selecting Convert to Mesh from Curve Meta Serve Text. Now, this is a mesh, but it's a bit too smooth. Let's add a Displace modifier to make its shape a bit more irregular. We'll be using the modifier with the texture. So let's create a texture first. Go to the Texture tab and add a texture. Set its type to Voronoi and size to 0.5. Now go to the Modifiers tab and add a Displace modifier. From the drop-down list, select the Voronoi texture you just created and set its strength to 0.3. Now the tunnel looks more irregular in shape. Now select the camera over here and go to Camera View by hitting 0 on your numpad. This is what the camera can see. Now go to the Object Data tab. Now the focal length doesn't allow you to see much, so reduce it to 15. Fine. If necessary, rotate the camera slightly up or down so that both floor and ceiling are partially visible. We can now rotate the camera a bit down, like that. Now we can see part of the ceiling and part of the floor. Now, still in Camera View, go to the Constraint tab, which is over here, and play with the offset again to make sure the camera can see what you want to be seen along the whole path. So, let's move the camera along the path. Yeah, I think it's okay. Now, let's set it back to 0. If you're not fully satisfied, just adjust the camera even more. Now go to Rendered View. Looks like it's a bit too dark. We'll need the light to be somewhere closer to the camera. Now go to Top View, so hit 7 on your numpad. Wireframe shading over here, so that you can see the camera and the light better. Here's the light. Now select the light. It's easier to do in the outliner. Fine. And reset its location by hitting Alt-G. Now the light is in the center. In the Object Data tab, make sure it's a point light and set its power to 100 watts. Good. Now we want the light to move along with the camera, in front of it. We could do it by parenting the light to the camera, but we're going to leverage the path curve we created before. So with the light selected, add a follow path constraint Constraints, Add, Follow Path, and as the target, select Path. Good. Now the light is at the same location as the camera, but we want it to be in front of it. So set the offset to 20. Good. This distance looks okay to me. Now go to Rendered Shading, Camera View, so hit 0 on your numpad, and this is what you get. Now select the tunnel in the outliner and go to the Material tab, add a new material, and set its color to green. You can use the same number as me, which is hexadecimal 28830E. Fine. Now set metallic to 0.5. Okay. Now select the light in the outliner, and in the Object Data tab, set its color to hex FF9447. This will give us an interesting effect. Now, the walls of the tunnel are still too smooth. Let's add some bumps to them. Go to the Shading workspace, here, Rendered Shading, Camera View, and select the tunnel in the outliner. Now here we have the nodes. Let's add a bump node. You can do it in the menu, here, Add, Vector, Bump, or by using the hotkey Shift-A, Vector, Bump. So the same hotkey as the one to add objects in the 3D View editor. Now connect bumps normal to the principled shaders normal. So maybe we can just drag it a bit down over here. And now we can match these two. Okay. The principled node was created the moment you added the material in the Material tab. Now make sure bump strength is set to 1, so it is, and set distance to 1.5. Okay, then add a noise texture node by selecting Texture, Noise Texture in the Add menu. Add, Texture, Noise Texture. Connect its color to bump's height. The noise texture consists of small areas of different colors. So now each change in color will correspond to a change in the height of the bumps. In the noise texture node, set scale to 2 and detail to 10. Now it looks much better. So we're done with the material. I'm going to keep it simple. Now go back to the Layout workspace and then to the Output tab. There you can see that the frame rate is set to 24. If it isn't, just set it to today's value. This means there will be 24 frames every second. We want the animation to be 10 seconds long, so it must consist of 240 frames. So set the end value in the timeline to 240. Now let's save what we have. Fine. And now we're ready to animate the camera. So select it in the outliner. Now in the timeline, go to frame 1. Here we are at frame 1. So, if you're not at frame 1, you can do it by pressing this button over here. Now the camera is going to move along the path, but the property we're actually going to animate is the offset. So go to the Object Constraint tab, where the offset is. Now the offset is 0. Right-click on the offset to insert a keyframe. Right-click, Insert Keyframe. Here you can see the keyframe. You can also tell there's a keyframe because the color of the offset box has changed. Now go to the last frame, which you can do by pressing the button on the right in the timeline over here. And now set the offset to 100. And insert another keyframe. So right-click, Insert Keyframe. Now go back to frame 1 and play the animation. You will quickly notice that the camera is moving along the path, but the light isn't, and it gets very dark in the tunnel. We want the light to also move along the path and keep a constant offset to the camera. In order to animate the light, let's first select it in the outliner. Make sure you're at frame 1, because this is where we want the animation to start. As you can see in the Object Constraint tab, the offset of the light is 20. And this is the constant offset we want to keep, which means the light should be at any time during the animation 20 units in front of the camera. Right-click the offset box and insert a keyframe. Good. Now go to the last frame, set offset to 120, so the value of the camera at the last frame was 100, and here we must add the offset 20, and insert a keyframe. Good. Now go to frame 1 and play the animation. This time, the light is moving along with the camera. We are now ready to render the animation. Go to the Output tab and select a folder where your animation will be stored. Over here, let's say this is my folder. Set the file format to FFmpeg video. And under encoding, set container to MPEG-4. Now, before we start rendering the animation, let's make a test render. So go to any frame you like for example 120 or something like that, and render the image. Render image. Good. If you're satisfied with the image, you can start rendering the animation. So don't forget to save the file before. And now go to the Render menu and select Render Animation. It's going to take a while. Now I will pause the video and I will come back when my rendering is finished. Okay, and here is the final animation. Okay, that's it for this video. If you like it, a thumbs up would be great. Also, make sure to subscribe for future videos. If you want to leave a comment or ask a question, you're welcome to do so. Thanks for watching.